Okay, Chris, now, in our 9th season, it's ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. From Fenway Park, it's the Mets with the National League's leading hitter, Jon taking on the Red Sox and their great slugger, Vaughn. For a quarter of the season, the New York Mets stayed just above 500. They pitched well, and they played outstanding defense. But they couldn't create excitement about Mets baseball in New York. And then 15 days ago, everything changed. Mike Piazza arrived in town, supplying the Mets with a much-needed dose of star power. And New York responded with a winning streak that has certified them as serious playoff contenders. The Boston Red Sox have postseason visions, too, powered by the big bat of Vaughn and the brilliance of Nomar Garcia-Parra. Two teams who could meet in October, next on Sunday Night Baseball. The rains have subsided, at least for now, and all roads lead to Fenway Park. One more interleague game between the Mets and the Red Sox. And, of course, not only Red Sox fans, but Mets fans, again converging on Fenway Park. They've been here all weekend. Big crowd gathering. It's the Mets and the Red Sox in the National League East. Atlanta has things well under control, but the Mets are also in the wild card race, in addition to being 7.5 back of Atlanta. And the Red Sox have the same dilemma in the American League East. The American League's top team right now is the Yankees. Boston 11 back, but they lead the wild card race by a game. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller, along with Joe Morgan. Welcome to our telecast tonight. The Mets and Red Sox. And the Mets have won the first 2 ball games. And, Joe, Mike Piazza is out of the lineup again tonight after being hit on Friday by Pedro Martinez. But they've won the 2 games without him. And they've also, since his arrival, gone 9-3, even though he hasn't been all that hot.
Well, you're right, but just his presence in the lineup makes the team better. And Bernard Gilkey has picked up his game, so has Carlos Baerga. And John Olerud has been consistent the entire season. So that's the reason that they have picked up their offense. But they still need another power hitter. So when Piazza gets back, he's going to have to supply some power. He's only hit 1 home run as a New York Met.
The Mets pitching has been sensational, and Japanese import Masato Yoshii is one who has been outstanding as well. One of 3 Mets pitchers in the top 7 in the league in ERA. But, Joe, a word to the wires for Yoshii at Fenway Park on Sunday Night Baseball. Look out for Vaughn. He always is at his best on Sunday Night Baseball.
Well, you're right. He's hit 9 home runs on Sunday Night Baseball. But Yoshi is a control pitcher, so that means if he doesn't have his control, he can be in trouble. He's not an overpowering pitcher. If he doesn't have his control, we can see a lot of balls peppering that left field wall here in Fenway.
All right. So it's the Mets and the Red Sox from Fenway Park. It's wet out here, and we don't know how much more rain the field can take. Masato Yoshii versus Steve Avery. Stay tuned. The Mets and Red Sox are coming up.
There's no need to go anywhere but the Home Depot.
Bobby Valentine, he certainly had a great time at Fenway this weekend, as his Mets have won each of the first 2 ball games here, including a win Friday night, where they hit 4 home runs against Pedro Martinez. Now the Pepsi Mets batting order. It will be Brian McRae, one of yesterday's heroes. They had only 2 hits in yesterday's game, and yet they won 1-0. Edgardo Alfonso, third base. Bernard Gilkey, left field. John Olerud, the league's leading hitter, at first base. Butch Husky, right field. Carlos Baerga, who's been red hot the last 15 games. He's hitting, actually, the last 17 games, .431. Jim Tate in the DH. Alberto Castillo, the catcher, with Piazza out, and Ray Ordonez is at shortstop. And on the mound for the Boston Red Sox, the veteran left-hander, there he is, Steve Avery.
And, John, Steve Avery has made a couple of changes in his delivery. He's dropping down a little bit more. If you remember with the Braves, he was almost straight over the top with the changeup and the curveball. He's dropped down to 3/4 now. They figure he gets a little more movement and he gets a little more velocity on his fastball. And let's take a look at the defense behind Avery for the Red Sox. Look at this, a pretty good defense. And, of course, Garcia-Parra is their shortstop. He's the main man. And Darren Lewis in center field, former Gold Glove winner in the National League. He is an excellent center fielder, and he's turning into a good leadoff hitter.
Darren Lewis, always known as an outstanding defensive player, but never hit much until now. We're underway. Ball 1 to Brian McRae, hitting only .228, but yesterday he stole the only run of the game. Pop up. Garcia-Parra He's out there along with Benjamin, but it's Garcia Parra all the way. And there is one man gone. Tim Wakefield yesterday went 8 innings and gave up 1 hit. And the only run he allowed scored on a balk, which really, in effect, was prompted by the base running of Brian McRae. And that was the only run of the game.
He did a great job of bouncing off third and got Wakefield to move.
It was ball 1 to Edgardo Alfonso. So the Mets have, it was kind of a typical Mets play for 1998. That's the way they play the game. Even before they got Mike Piazza and they got so hot, the Mets had played winning baseball, even though they had very little offense. They were last in the league in home run hitting, but they were winning games with excellent pitching, outstanding defense, strong fundamental play. And then Piazza arrived, and then they turned it up a notch. Everybody, the fans, the players themselves seemed to get excited.
Well, anytime you add a great hitter to your lineup, it improves, just his presence makes everyone else better. And all the excitement in Shea Stadium, I think it's just kind of contagious, and everyone's picked their game up.
Pop up, shallow center. Benjamin going out. Lewis coming in. The two former Giants communicating well. And the man in San Francisco that they used to call D-Lou makes the grab as Benjamin gave ground. 2 down. Before the trade. Actually, the record before Piazza's arrival, 24-20. Look at that. They were hitting only .238. They've won 9 out of 12 since Piazza arrived in New York, played his first game, and they've hit .322. And that's quite a difference. This is Bernard Gilkey. He's one of those who got hot. And really, their key guys all seem to get hot at once. Gilkey, Olerud, Carlos Baerga. Ball 1 strike.
I feel that Bernard Gilkey is kind of the key to this ball club, he and Baerga, because Gilkey is their most complete player. I mean, he can do more things: power, defense, hit for an average, and he can steal a base for you. And Baerga is a guy that's going to hit down behind Piazza, so he's going to have to be one to put some numbers up, and he's been doing that lately.
1-2 the count. Change up, check swing. And an appeal made to Jim Joyce, the first base umpire, but he rules in favor of Gilkey. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Carlos Baerga hitting 6 in the order in this game.
And he's a much better hitter from the left side, but with a left-handed pitcher, he's dropped down a little bit tonight.
Another changeup for the strikeout. 3 up and 3 down. And we go to the last of the first inning. Mets nothing, the Red Sox coming up. Mets nothing, Red Sox coming up. And Jimmy Williams has had the Red Sox after an excellent beginning in second place behind the incredibly hot New York Yankees. The Yankees won again today and are now 44-13. Well, here's Jimmy Williams batting over the Pepsi Red Sox lineup, and they have not been hitting in this series, that's for sure. It'll be Darren Lewis, center field, Reggie Jefferson, the DH. Nomar Garcia Parra, the shortstop. Mo Vaughn hits cleanup at first. Troy O'Leary, 13 homers in left. John Valentin at third base. Scott Hatteberg, the catcher, hitting 7th. Mike Benjamin at second. And Darren Bragg is in right field, batting 9th. And on the mound for the New York Mets from Osaka, Japan, Masato Yoshii. And Yoshii has been outstanding for New York. He comes in with an earned run average of 2.25, 5th in the National League. 60 innings, only 50 hits allowed. Not a real hard thrower. But Joe, the man throws strikes. He changes speeds. He knows what he's doing out there. He's no rookie, 33 years of age.
Well, he uses both sides of the plate. But his best pitch, like Nomo's, is a split-fingered fastball. He has a 4-seam fastball, which rises a little bit, and he has a sinking fastball, a 2-seamer he calls a shuto, which runs in on the right-handed hitter.
Darren Lewis, 296 average. That's a strike. And that is certainly a great improvement for Darren Lewis. Always considered a great defensive player, but a lifetime batting average of only 247 before this year. There's the shuto. Edgardo Alfonso. And you'll find the Mets will not make too many mistakes behind Yoshii or anybody else.
Well, they have a very good defense. I mean, especially when you look at Ray Ordonez at shortstop. He won a Gold Glove this year, but they have a good defense. McRae, good center fielder. Husky is good. The whole left side is very good. So they have a good defense. They do not make a lot of mistakes.
Mets have given up fewer unearned runs than any other team in the league. Here is Reggie Jefferson. And it's ball one. Garcia-Parra is on deck. In the dirt for a ball. 2 balls, no strikes. Yoshii, formerly of the Kintetsu Buffaloes, and he and his new Mets teammate, Hideo Nomo, were teammates for several years with the Buffaloes in Japan, and described as being the best of friends. Oh, they changed up on him there. 2-1.
Well, the key to his success will be his control, and you get a look at Nomo in the dugout, and he uses his changeup inside that particular time. You'll see him move the changeup away.
Just missing inside. Yoshi grew up an Oakland A's fan. And then when Nomo made the Dodgers, he became a Dodger fan. How surprising.
That makes sense. You're right.
I guess we could have figured that out without finding it out for sure. And it's ball 4 to Jefferson, so he's aboard, and now the Red Sox power is coming up.
And Garcia-Parra has been struggling a little bit since he's been back in the lineup, but last year he hit first. He drove in 98 runs as a leadoff hitter, and now they've got him hitting third, and I think third place is a good spot for him, but he has been struggling a little bit, and he says it takes an adjustment for him to hit third after being the leadoff hitter last year, but if he doesn't get hot, I think they may move him back to leadoff.
You could not complain with his results from there last year. Runner at first, 1 out, and there's ball 1 inside. Well, you see, last year he hit 30 homers, had 98 RBIs, a major league record for a leadoff man. His home runs by a leadoff man, the 5th best in history. Bobby Bonds must have thought he was looking at himself if he ever tuned in and seen Garcia-Parra swinging.
That looked like a Bobby Bonds statistics as a leadoff hitter. 30+ home runs, 30+ stolen bases.
Off the fist, foul. 1 ball, 1 strike. Garcia-Parra has spent some time in the disabled list this year, hitting only .278. And he is one of those who's been shut down effectively in this series by the Mets pitching. Now lighter here on Friday than yesterday. Bobby Jones. Red Sox have only scored 2 runs in 2 games in their own ballpark.
Actually, he was struggling a little bit before they got here. So I don't want to give them all the credit. I talked to him today, and he said one of the problems is that, you know, every once in a while that shoulder still bothers him a little bit. He hurt his shoulder diving for a ball. He said he was chasing the ball up the middle. He was about to make a dive, and he got to the ball quicker than he thought. And he was in a bad position. He couldn't roll on his shoulder, and he had a slight separation of the left shoulder.
3-1. And of course, he is one of a trio of great young shortstops in the American League right now. Alex Rodriguez out in Seattle. Derek Jeter with the Yankees. And, of course, Garcia-Parra here with Boston. And all 3 of them, great talent, excellent defensively, excellent with the bats. They work hard. They're accessible. And hard to find a complaint with any one of the 3. But Garcia-Parra got hurt for a while, and now Jeter is on the DL with the Yankees. Center field, McRae waits for it.
Well, right there, that tells you that he is struggling a little bit. It's not that Yoshi got him out then. He had a 3-1 fastball. He got the pitch he wanted. Fastball in, and he could not pull the trigger on it. So you have to be careful when he falls behind here in this count like he's done with the first 2 hitters. He fell behind Jefferson, and he walked him, and he got behind Garcia-Parra.
Bob Apodaca, the pitching coach, is out there now. Seemed like there might be something wrong with Yoshi, and he is convinced that he's okay.
Well, I think he wanted to check with him on the mound because Jim McKean did the same thing between innings. He went out to the mound and checked the mound to make sure it was dry. And I'm sure that they went out to make sure the same thing, that Yoshi wasn't having any trouble. They're not used to seeing him throw this many pitches out of the strike zone and fall behind this many hitters, so I'm sure they felt like something was wrong with the mound. But he better not have that problem right now and fall behind Mo Vaughn.
8th in the league in hitting in the American League, 324. He got 17 homers. In fact, the only runs the Red Sox have scored in this series came on 2 Mo Vaughn home runs in Friday night's ball game. And Mo, who has a chance to be a free agent at the end of the year, batting here with 3 infielders to the right side of second. Only the third baseman Alfonso remains on the left side. He's almost over to shortstop. Too far in. 1 ball, 1 strike to Mo Vaughn. Now there's a look at the defense. You see Alfonso almost over to short. And there to the right of second is the shortstop, Ordonez. And Baerga found a little dry spot there, Joe, where they put the sand-like material. 1-1.
Well, that's why they're planning that way. They expect to throw him some change-ups and also keep him off balance with fastballs in. And there's the splitter. And it's off the outside corner. Mo way out in front of it. But he had set Mo up with a fastball in the pitch before.
1-2 the count. 2 down. Right to Olerud. He's got the easy put out. Mo Vaughn is gone. So are the Red Sox. No score after 1. Olerud will be coming up. Then Husky and Baerga when we get back. And they have a little line of demarcation, a neutral zone between them. Good idea. Strike 1 from Steve Avery to John Olerud. And here we go to the second inning. Olerud is hitting .370 to lead the National League. And on top of that, he gets a lot of walks. Strike 2. 0-2.
Well, he led the American League a couple of years ago, and he stayed around .400 for most of that season. So we know that he can maintain a high average throughout the season.
1893. Olerud had his best year in the big leagues. He had us all going to the record books to find out what Ted Williams was hitting on various dates, as Olerud stayed over 400 for a while. Mo Vaughn took the short hop, and Olerud is gone.
Everyone tells me that Mo Vaughn is playing better first base this year as well. He's having his usual outstanding year with the bat.
Batting fifth, number 42, the right fielder, Butch.
Mo Vaughn, I don't know how you're can imagine this team without having Mo Vaughn in the middle of that lineup.
Here's Butch Husky now. Right-handed hitter, 241, 7 home runs, and that is a called strike. Husky leads the Mets with 7 homers. The Mets have hit 39 home runs this year in 56 games. No score. That's up and away. And it's interesting, Husky still wears the number 42. Mo Vaughn still wears the number 42, and they are the last remaining major leaguers to wear that number. And on Jackie Robinson night at Shea Stadium last year, a game we televised right here on ESPN, acting commissioner Bud Selig announced that baseball was unilaterally retiring the number 42. And here it is posted at Fenway Park, right next to Ted Williams' number. In the hole, Garcia Power. That is out number 2. When we showed that number, it looked to me like there's little rain falling again here at Fenway.
It'll look like a lot of rain.
2 down, nobody on. Now, here is Baerga.
Number 8, the second baseman, Carlos Baerga.
What'd you say to him? No, he understood. Yeah. He said it's all right? Yeah? Yeah.
And that was Bobby Valentine talking to Bob Apodaca after Apodaca went to the mound to see about the conditions out there. And he asked Bob Apodaca if Yoshii understood him.
I would think that Bobby Valentine would speak some Japanese because he was in Japan for a long period of time as a manager.
Yeah, he managed the season over there. Here's Carlos Baerga. Popped up. Benjamin calling for it. And just like that, the Mets are gone. 6 in a row retired by Avery. No score after 1.5. Troy O'Leary will be coming up. Mets nothing, Red Sox nothing. We go to the last of the second. Big crowd at Fenway. Last night, a sellout crowd in Cincinnati. And they took the occasion to retire the number of Joe Morgan, the immortal number 8 of the Big Red Machine.
Nellie Fox was inducted in the Hall of Fame last year. I said to his wife, this should have happened sooner. Her answer was, let's just enjoy the moment. Thank you.
And that was last night in Cincinnati. It sounded to me, Joe, as though you were enjoying the moment, but also rather emotional moments out there in Cincinnati for you.
Well, it was, for a couple of reasons.
Broken back by Troy O'Leary. Third baseman Alfonso throws him out. And there is one away in the Boston second.
John, I mean, the difficult part was before the ceremony started, my twin daughters, Ashley and Kelly, read a poem that my wife had written about number 8 and the retirement of number 8. And that was kind of a little heavy for me. And Bench was standing behind me. He said, I would have already broken up by now.
Yeah, and you didn't know about it?
No, I didn't know about it. And it was a surprise. And then I had to go up and speak. So that was difficult. You're right.
Here is John Valentin. So your whole family, the girls were there, and your wife, Teresa, to enjoy with you. Valentin, first ball swinging, pops it up into shallow left field. The shortstop, Ordonez, and that is out number 2. Well, Joe, get set to get emotional again, perhaps. You're talking about that poem. Here it is.
A player complete who won 5 gold gloves, a leader with impact hat, and caught up above, who, of course, is a member of the Hall of Fame, the supreme second baseman, Joe Morgan's the name.
Well, you're right. That is difficult to handle when you have twin daughters like that, and they're special.
It's difficult for me to handle.
Yeah. My other daughter, Lisa, of course, was there, too. So it was a great evening. But most of all, my parents were there, and they've been able to be with me through my entire career. I think it's a blessing.
Scott Hatterberg, the hitter, 2 down, nobody on, no score. Well, on behalf of all of us for Sunday Night Baseball, we've all been together now. This is our 9th season. Congratulations. And glad to see Cincinnati doing the right thing.
Thank you very much.
That's acknowledging some of their great history now.
I think that's the important thing, John. We had talked about it's not just me, but to acknowledge all the great players who played there, and especially the 1976 team.
Ordonez, he is really something. That's not even a tough play for him. He makes much more difficult plays than that. No score after 2 innings. We move to the 3rd in the rain at Fenway.
Number 19.
Baseball in the rain at Fenway Park in Boston. John Miller, Joe Morgan, your Sunday night telecasters here with you. And it looks like the people brought their rain gear. They knew what to expect. It rained for a good part of the day here. Jim Tatum leads it off against Steve Avery for the Mets. He's the 7th place hitter, the DH, something the Mets don't often have to find with the difference in the rules in the 2 leagues. Tatum filling that role here tonight with Piazza out with an injury. Was some hope, I think, that Piazza might be able to DH tonight. But Bobby Valentine told him before the game, let's wait another couple of days anyway. And Avery misses 2-0.
After this, they go to Atlanta, so you'll have to play. Oh, Boston's going to Atlanta. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Got that wrong. Boston's going to Atlanta.
Mets are going home to face the Tampa Bay Devil Rays come to Shea Stadium. Here's the left field foul pole as part of the big wall out of left field. 37 feet 2 inches high. And a camera right out there in the top row of those left field stands. It's into center field. There is Lewis. Tatum is gone.
One of the things about the interleague play, a lot of players discussing it. National League players say they should not use the DH even in the American League cities, and of course the American League cities believe that they should use the DH the entire time because you're not seeing true competition for how they play. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, if you're in the National League Park, do you just go ahead and take the DH out? Like especially a team like Seattle where Edgar Martinez is one of the best players and people want to see him. So do you take him out? That's a tough question.
Alberto Castillo drops the bunt down, but although Avery's slipping and sliding right there, it looked like he was playing for the Bruins there for a moment.
Yeah,
he got it.
That's a tough play, but it also brings to mind that this field is still pretty wet out there.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very poor bunt, actually. A good idea, but not a good bunt. And you see him sliding, and you're lucky. He's lucky he didn't throw that ball high over Mo Vaughn's head down the right field line.
Well, you don't often get a chance to use this term or this word in baseball, but he actually was glissading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I waited 9 years to use that on Sunday Night Baseball.
Where'd you learn a puzzle, one of those crosswords?
Oh, you taught it to me.
No.
Ray Ordonez hits one right back to Avery. Avery has been perfect through 3 innings, even though he had that moment of glissading. No score after 2.5. Sunday Night Baseball from Fenway Park. Mets nothing, Red Sox nothing. Mike Benjamin leads it off against Masato Yoshii. High pop foul. Coming back is Castillo, but it is out of play. 0-1 the count. Alberto Castillo just on his own, not encouraged even one little bit by Bobby Valentine or anybody else. Got himself a little Japanese English dictionary and is able to actually go out and have a basic conversation with his pitcher, Yoshii. And speak maybe about 100 different words. There's that changeup, and it is 0-2. Is that the splitter or the straight change?
No, there's only a few words that you need, to be honest with you, about, for pitching. You don't need quite 100 just to ask him, how does he feel? Move the ball a little bit more. Stay down. I mean, a few things that.
Well, you're up to 15 already.
Well, but you could probably come up with just a few that would work.
Out toward the triangle, but that's the most spacious portion of Fenway Park. 420 feet out there. And Benjamin is on number 1. Next Sunday, we will go back to Toronto. 2 teams in the wild card race, Cal Ripken and the struggling Orioles, Roberto Alomar and Jose Canseco, and the Blue Jays. From the Sky Dome, we hope you'll join us 8 Eastern, 7 Central, right here on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.
Well, I bet you Canseco will be glad to see us. He's been struggling since we left there.
He got hot there when we were there the last time. Got 17 homers. He's also up among the league leaders in stolen bases. Here's Darren Bragg.
Well, he's talking about another 40-40 season.
Canseco started today with 17 homers and 17 steals. The average has fallen back into the 220s. That's a strike on the outside, so Jim McKean. 1 ball, 1 strike to Bragg. Canseco down to 224. They have 17 homers, 36 batted in. The Jays still, though, overall as a team struggling to score runs. Sean Green has come on, playing more regularly. Got 12 home runs for them. And since we were there, Mike Stanley picked up a little bit. He was really slumping. That is strike 3 call from Yoshii.
And that's the best sequence of pitches he has put together in this ball game. A couple on the outside corner, and then the last one on the inside corner. Let's take a look at this pitch from Mascam. Look at this, right on the inside corner. Strike 3 call. Perfect pitch after throwing a couple of pitches away to set him up.
Our thanks to Alberto Castillo. Domo arigato gozaimasu. To Alberto, muchas gracias to Alberto Castillo for wearing mask cam tonight for us. And here is Darren Lewis. There's the splitter, and it is 0-1. Lewis grinded to third his first time. There's Castillo with mask cam. He said he can ask Yoshii things like, how's your shoulder feel? And give him some basic commands, as you were talking about. Driven toward the wall in left, off the scoreboard. He will have to hold with a single. Well, the big wall in left giveth, and it also taketh away. Usually if you get it over the head of the left fielder, it's an easy double, maybe a triple. Here, merely a single. Of course, in most ballparks, he would have been able to go back and probably catch that one.
Well, let's take a look at from Mascam. This is what a hard line drive looks like coming off of the bat. That's what a catcher and the umpire sees. I was a little surprised, though, that Darren Lewis didn't try for second base, John. He had a chance, and there are 2 outs, and usually you're always encouraged to try it with 2 outs. And I really think he had a shot at it.
And now here is Reggie Jefferson. Well, Darren Lewis in his first year at Fenway, so he's got a little learning to do about his own ballpark. Of course, the Red Sox over the years have usually take advantage of a lot of the nuances of the park versus the opposition, which often will struggle. Bernard Gilkey played that carom pretty well.
Played it perfectly because I thought it was going to bounce away from him, but he got the proper angle and it came right to him. I mentioned earlier, he's a pretty good outfielder. He's really improved. When he first came up, he was basically a hitter with the Cardinals, but he is a pretty good outfielder.
And I've seen some outstanding outfielders made to look like, bungling fools out there in left field. Ricky Anderson when he was younger. And it was a nightmare for Ricky coming in here. He was a Gold Glove guy. And at Fenway, he always seemed to get it wrong whatever he did. If he went back to the wall for the catch, it was over his head. And with a carom. If he played the carom, it bounced off the warning track. And as you see Gilkey, he got it just right.
Now watch, see the angle he's at? He comes over and catches it. If you stand straight where the ball was going, he would have missed that because the angle would have taken the ball away from him. But he got over and played the angle properly and held Darren Lewis to a single.
2-0 the count to Jefferson. He walked his first time. And the change up over the outside. 2-1. Well, Fred Lynn used to play an excellent center field here. And he said he used to laugh and laugh and laugh. He'd watch opposing guys play balls off the wall. He'd be waiting for a ball like that, and then it would shoot 20 feet off to their right if they weren't familiar with the angles. There goes Lewis. And he's in there. The ball was dropped by Castillo.
Well, I guess that's why I didn't attempt it before. He figured he could steal the base. But now there are 2 strikes on Jefferson. I thought they had a chance here because this is a high fastball, perfect pitch to throw on. In fact, they did have a shot at him, but Castillo seemed to drop the ball or it slipped out of his hand when he got ready to throw.
Lewis leads the Red Sox with 9 steals. Now base hit. Give me a run. There's no score in the game. We're in the 3rd. Garcia would be next. 2-2 to Jefferson. He has struggled in at bats like this, though.
Now, I'm a firm believer that if you're going to steal a base, steal it earlier in the count. You do not want to try to steal a base and be there with 2 strikes on the hitter. Now he's in a tougher position. If you could steal a base with maybe 1 strike or even earlier, then it gives him a full at bat to try to drive you in.
The splitter, and he gets the base hit to center field, and Lewis will score the game's first run.
Good job there by Jefferson. Good job by Lewis to steal the base, but Jefferson comes through with a 2-out single up the middle.
Now, is that a scouting report? I mean, was he waiting for the splitter there, sitting on the splitter?
Well, I'm sure it's like anything else. You know what the pitcher's best pitch is. You know if he gets in trouble, he's going to go to that pitch. And with 2 strikes, you're going to go with the splitter anyway because that's your best pitch. That ball's hit sharply back through the middle. Yoshi was actually in pretty good fielding position there, and Lewis comes around to score the first run of the ball game. But good hitting there by Jefferson, especially with 2 strikes.
And this marks the first time in this series that the Red Sox have had any lead at all. You see Garcia up there now going through some of the peculiarities between pitches. I mean, he'll get into the gloves. Yeah. Adjusting the wristbands. Then the feet. And they really get busy as he awaits the pitch. He does everything but the flat.
I really think that, he's struggling a little bit with his swing because he's getting pitches to hit. First pitch there was a fastball in. He had a 2-0 fastball earlier in this ball game to hit, and he's just not getting around on it.
That foul ball almost nailed Mo Vaughn, who's not too far away in the on-deck circle. Mo ducked under it. And there's Mascan. Look out, Mo.
Well, you see Castillo wanted to see where it was going, too.
Maybe he was the one hollering, look out, Mo. 1-2 now to Garcia. Mo Vaughn would be next. If Castillo can get his shots like that on a regular basis, Joe, we might beat the Mets salary and bring him in full time on Sunday Night Baseball. That's foul. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Garcia. He flied out to center his first time. Mets have had a lot of problems keeping catchers healthy this year. Todd Hundley still on the disabled list and may not be back till mid to late July. Mike Piazza, of course, they traded for him, and now he's hurt a little bit. Down the left field line. Fair ball into the corner. Yoki plays the carom, stopping at third Jefferson. A double for Garcia Parra, and Mo will get a shot here to do some serious damage.
Maybe. But that's why I said Garcia Parra wasn't swinging the bat well. He did on that. He is normally a good inside of the middle end hitter. They try to go inside again, and he just rips this down the line. That's the Garcia Parra that drove in 98 runs last year. I mean, he can handle that inside pitch, and he wasn't handling it the first time up in the game and the first 2 strikes here. But that one he rips down the corner, and now they have runners at second and third for Mo Vaughn. We'll see if they go after him or if they try to pitch around him or just decide to put him on.
The man behind him is a left-handed hitter and is the second leading home run hitter for the Red Sox, Troy O'Leary. I mean, he's not Mo Vaughn.
Right. In most cases with a base open, it doesn't really matter who's hitting behind you if you're one of the stars in this league. They decide whether they're going to pitch to you. I know that obviously they're going to pitch tough because they have runners in scoring position, but they may not give him anything at all.
You should get a read on that right now. Too low, ball 1. Again, the Mets with a big shift on the infield for him. Not as big as when nobody was on base.
Well, they can't get completely over to the other side as they did the first time up. First time up, they had Ordonez way over by right center field almost, you know. But Mo would slap that ball through up the middle or to the other side probably if they take too much of that right side away from them.
2-0. Doesn't look like he's interested in pitching to Mo to me.
Well, I don't really see why you would do it anyway. I think they're just trying to get Mo to chase some pitches out of the strike zone. I don't think they want to go after him.
Especially on Sunday Night Baseball. Look at that. Nearly a 500 average on Sunday night with 9 homers in only 52 Sunday Night Baseball at bats.
But Mo has to remain patient.
You got the splitter there. He had visions of wreaking some mayhem on that ball. It looked awfully fat coming in, I think, Joe.
Well, you have to remain patient. You know they're not going to give you a pitch out in the zone. And that's a pretty good splitter right there. Good movement. The ball's moving down to Mo.
2-1. Jefferson at third. Garcia Parra at second. A run is in. The Red Sox lead 1-0. Base hit could mean 2 more. 3-1.
They were serious about trying to get him out. I think they might have tried to sneak a fastball away from him after the changeup inside, but they came back inside again.
There's Jefferson at third. Garcia Parra at second. Both would have going anything with 2 down. 3-1 to Mo Vaughn. And the walk.
Sometimes you have to go ahead and take your walks because you could hurt the team if he swings at a bad pitch there with runners in scoring position. Sometimes you just have to leave it up to your teammates. And that was a good at bat for Mo.
And Vaughn surprisingly does not take many walks.
Yeah, but I think in this case he realizes that they're on they've lost 2 of the first 2 games here against the Mets, and you know it's important for them to win, and he realizes that hey, he's not going to be able to do it by himself.
Now O'Leary comes up. But here's one of the problems the Red Sox have had as a team. They have not hit well in these kinds of situations. And O'Leary especially hitting only .218 with runners in scoring position. And just barely over 100 with 2 out in men in scoring position.
A little different with the bases loaded, though, than, say, a runner at second with 2 outs.
Good pitch. There's that fastball on the outside at the knees. 0-1. 3 men on. Jefferson at third. Garcia Parra at second. And Mo Vaughn at first. 1 run in for Boston. A chance now to do some damage. Yoshi trying to get out of it. Save there by Castillo on a ball in the dirt. The team will put a new ball in play. O'Leary has 13 homers. On the other hand, only 28 runs batted in.
He had 12 for 55 with runners in scoring position. That's quite a few at bats as well to to be struggling like that.
Yeah. In other words, he's had a lot of men with a chance to drive in.
Yeah, a lot of times you don't get a lot of opportunities. You say, well, you know, it's tough to get some consistency, but he has had quite a few opportunities.
Just missing in the inside. 2-1. I think Yoshii wanted that call.
Well, he needed that call because you do not want to fall behind 2-1, because now O'Leary can sit on a pitch, and even if it's not the pitch he wants, it still goes to 2-2, but he can't afford to go 3-1.
Oh, went to the splitter.
Well, that's part of his success, being able to change speeds, use the corners, and being able to throw that pitch when you're behind in the count. Get a look from mass cam. You can't see the movement as well right there. That ball really dropped down a little bit more.
2-2. 2 out, 3 on. Again, up the middle. It's a base hit. Jefferson scores. Garcia Parra scores. Vaughn to third. And Bobby Valentine is out of the dugout pointing to second base, I think, saying that Mo Vaughn missed the bag. And they go over and tag second base.
No to go there. They said he touched the bag.
Al Clark at the bag immediately gave the safe call at second. So the Red Sox get the big hit in the clutch from Troy O'Leary. It is 3-0 Boston.
Well, that was a great at bat, we might as well say, because this pitch, watch, it's almost on the ground. Look at this. Look where he hits that ball from. But he stays with it. He doesn't try to pull it, just as Jefferson did. He's going back through the middle with the pitch, and that's what you have to do with 2 strikes on tough pitches or trick pitches. Hit them back through the middle, and that ground ball goes up the middle for a base hit. Good job there by both Jefferson and O'Leary to keep this inning going. And I mean, nothing you can say about that if you're Yoshi, because I mean, he made the pitch that he wanted. The guy hit a tough pitch. Sometimes you have to give the hitter credit.
So Yoshi, first time through the lineup, issued just 1 walk, retired everybody else. Now this time through, 4 for 4 and a walk. He has not retired anybody in the second time through.
Well, tell you what, John, if Mo Vaughn would have missed second base, none of those 2 runs would not have counted, because it would have been a force out.
Here is Valentin. Vaughn at third, O'Leary at first. Oh, good try by Bobby Valentine. I mean, if it works,
yeah,
you save a couple of runs, right?
You're right.
And that's low. 2-0 to Valentin, who is a Mo Vaughn teammate at Seton Hall University. And they had a third teammate by the name of Craig Biggio on that club. The Mets bullpen is busy for the first time. Yoshii has hit 30 pitches in this inning alone. That is a bloop along the right field line. Base hit. Vaughn comes in to score. O'Leary to third. Valentin to second. And it is 4-0 Boston. And he remains, Yoshii does, unable to retire any of the Red Sox hitters here in the second time through the order. This all started with 2 down and nobody on in this inning.
Well, they have made some adjustments, but I mean, he's made some good pitches. They've just hit some good pitches. That ball gets more of the plate than it was supposed to, and Valentin goes the other way. I mean, he does that a lot. And he had a hole on the right side, and he hits it down the right field line, and he ends up at second base with a double and a run batted in.
Hatteberg now, the 9th batter of the inning. The Red Sox have 4 runs home, and now this could truly become a huge inning if Hatteberg could come through with a base hit. 2 men in scoring position. O'Leary at third, Valentin at second. On the outside for a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike.
John, it may seem like a little thing, but Mo Vaughn's bat was very key in this inning because he took the walk. And I think that's why Bobby Valentine pitched to him, hoping that he would go out of the strike zone, be anxious up there, and try to drive the runner in and swing at a bad pitch. He did not do so.
That's a foul.
So his at-bat was just as big, if not bigger, than Jefferson's and O'Leary's, because he could have made the 3rd out by going out of the strike zone.
Brian Bohannon, a left-hander up in the Mets bullpen. Valentine has not had a whole lot of need for his bullpen in this series up till now. 2 on, 2 out, 4 in. Just missing inside. 2-2. There again is O'Leary, who had a 2-run single at third. Valentin with an RBI single, or actually an RBI double at second base. That was the 37th pitch thrown in this inning by Yoshi. The Red Sox, who have hit only .249 as a team this year with men in scoring position, much lower than their overall team average, are 3 for 3 in those at-bats in this inning. 3-2. Strike 3 call in the outside corner. But the Red Sox get 4. Top of the order for the Mets now. McRae, Alfonso, and Gilkey. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball from Fenway Park. Ryan McRae on the top of the batting order coming up now for the New York Mets. McRae popped to short his first time against Steve Avery, and Avery now with a 4-run lead with which to work.
And he had been throwing strikes. He immediately falls behind 2 balls and no strikes.
His counterpart Yoshi threw 38 pitches in that inning, so Avery sat around for a good long while. 2-1. Yoshi could use a rest. Now he's thrown 62 pitches in only 3 innings. Center field Lewis got a late break on this one. Can't get to it. To the deepest part of the ballpark, the triangle. And McRae is going to get a triple. He just could not pick it up. And he waited and then waited a little bit more and then started to break back, and it was too late.
Well, he definitely did not get a normal jump on the baseball. He looked like he froze. He didn't freeze. He stood motionless for a second trying to gauge the distance. As McRae ripped this ball. Now what? He stood there for a second. Then he goes back and he just barely out of his reach. Lewis with those long strides, he covers a lot of ground, but he got a late break on that one. And McRae ends up at third base with a triple.
And that's triple country. He hit it out into the triangle. Here is Alfonso. And ball 1. A center fielder gets a chance to show his speed and range in this ballpark. Left field is a good place to go for a guy who doesn't cover a whole lot of ground. Vaughn knocks it down. Holding all the while at third is McRae, even though Alfonso reaches at first base.
That's going to be a tough call right there because Mo knocked the ball down. He had time to pick it up and throw Avery out, but he couldn't. I mean, to throw the ball to Avery, but he missed it. Now watch this. He dives. Now Avery breaks over. He has plenty of time. Now watch, if he picks it up right here, he has a chance. But he could not pick it up the first time. And McRae wasn't sure that ball wasn't a line drive, and trailing by 4 runs, he wanted to make sure it hit the ground first. And once it hit the ground, he wasn't about to go. But I'm not so sure that Mo didn't take his eyes off the ball to look over and see where McRae was.
Here's Gilkey. They score that as a base hit for Alfonso. Gilkey into right field. Bragg, medium deep. Here comes McRae. No, he stops halfway. And as Vaughn cuts off the throw.
Well, with no one out, and you're trailing by 4 runs, that being the first out on the catch, it's kind of difficult to make a close play at the plate. And actually, Bragg was in shallow right field. You see he's coming in. He caught the ball on the move. The throw is there. Would have been probably a close play, and at this point you can't afford a close play. Although McRae took off, he never took off like he was going. He looked like he was just trying to draw a throw. I think they decided that it was not deep enough and he was just making a bluff.
And I said medium deep. I should have just said medium.
Yeah, because it was shallower than deep.
Yeah. Yeah. John Olerud, the hitter.
Plus you have John Olerud coming up, league leading hitter. You rather give him a chance to try to drive that run in than take a chance on getting him thrown out at the plate.
Here's is the National League's leading hitter. And the curve is down and away. Nice save on it by the catcher, Hatterberg. Ivan Rodriguez of Texas is leading the American League in batting average. 1 ball, 1 strike to Olerud. Runners at first and third with 1 out. And it goes to 2-1. Now, the Mets with a chance to come storming back right into this game after falling behind 4-0, but they need a couple of clutch hits now. And they got the men up there they like to have up. Olerud and Husky, Baerga, although Gilkey was not able to deliver.
Well, if he gets a ground ball, he can get out of the inning, too. So they're really kind of, it's like you say, they can get back in the ball game or they can be in a lot of trouble because if it's a ground ball, Olerud doesn't run that well. They could be turned back this inning with a double play.
Olerud will make the pitcher throw a strike, though. Olerud has an on-base average of .476. That's a foul off to the left. Full count now, 3-2. Still playing in a light sprinkle at Fenway Park. And right down near the foul pole on the rooftop. And in this ballpark, that foul pole is not that far away. 3-2 the count. Back to the bag at first is Alfonso. And of course, Fenway has been a great left-handed hitter's park over the years because the left field fence is so close. You can see a great pitch if you're left-handed, down and away, and with a flick of the wrist, scrape one off that wall in left field. It would be an easy out anywhere else. Olerud making Avery wait. 3-2. There goes Alfonso from first base. The ball is again fouled. Still 3-2.
Well, they're showing a lot of confidence in Olerud to put the ball in play and trying to stay out of the double play, because if he strikes him out and throw him out, you're out of the inning. That's double play that way. But if you stay there and he hits a ground ball, you're out of the inning. So you take a chance one way or the other.
See that Olerud started hot, and then he went into a hot streak. And the throw to second, Alfonso is doubled up.
So I don't think you can do that.
So they took the risk again. Olerud foul tipped it into Hatterberg's glove. That's all for the Mets. They don't score. Mike Benjamin, the 8th place hitter, to lead it off for Boston. 4-0 the Red Sox ahead as we go to the last of the 4th inning. Masato Yoshii threw 38 pitches in a laborious 3rd inning. He retired Benjamin and Bragg, the men who started the inning. And then 6 straight Sox reached base. 4 of them scored. 2-0 to Benjamin. Right out, deep to right center his first time. Off the foot. 2-1.
John, the last play that ended the inning, the 4th inning, you know, if you're the manager, you know your players, you know your team, and if you don't have a lot of power, you try to make up for it in other ways. And I think that's what Bobby Valentine was trying to do there. He realized he doesn't have power. But by the same token, it's a tough run when you're down 4 runs to send a runner from first base with a left-handed pitcher up there. And if it's a right-handed pitcher, it may be a little different. He can get a better jump, so if he strikes out, he might steal the base.
Nice pickup by Alfonso. And he throws out Benjamin.
And let's take a look at the play. And the tough part here is the left-handed pitcher keeps the runner at first base close. Now watch how poor John. He has to wait till the pitcher actually delivers the ball. See, now he takes off. So if Olerud doesn't put the ball in play, he's automatically out. Look, he's only 15 feet from first base when the throw goes down. And I mean, that's tough. If it's a right-handed pitcher, he can get a better jump and maybe steal the base. But 4 runs down, that's a tough call.
Aaron Bragg right to Olerud. 2 men gone in the Boston 4th. And now let's get an update from Andre Aldridge.
MCI takes us to Anaheim, John, for the Angels and Rockies. Bottom of the first, Cecil Fielder facing Jamie Wright with a runner at second, and Big Papa sends one towards the right field corner. Jim Edmonds will come around to make it 3-love Anaheim. They've added a couple of more. Bottom of the fourth now, Angels lead at 5-0. Back to Joe and John in Boston.
All right. So Big Daddy comes through for the Angels. Here is Darren Lewis, and he takes ball one. Lewis is grounded to third. And then his single in the third started the 4-run rally. He also, with 2 down, stole second. Rashid throws him a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Red Sox will be playing the Atlanta Braves next. Braves took 2 out of 3 in Baltimore this weekend. So Boston heads down to Atlanta. The Mets go home, face Tampa Bay. And Baerga throws out Lewis. It's a 3-up and 3-down inning for Yoshi. We go to the 5th inning. Butch Husky, then Carlos Baerga coming up. 4-0 Red Sox. Red Sox 4, Mets nothing. Top of the 5th from Fenway Park. Coming up on Wednesday. ESPN's World Cup coverage premieres at 11 a.m. Wednesday. Yeah, I can feel that beat right now. Brazil, led by Ronaldo, begins its quest for the 5th World Cup title. They take on Scotland. That's at 11 a.m. Eastern. High pop-up hit by Butch Husky in the first pitch. Benjamin takes it, and Husky on 1 pitch is retired by Avery in the 5th inning. And Baerga will come up.
Avery's had a couple of innings where he's gotten out with a few pitches. He had a 7-pitch inning, and now he swings at the first pitch. So Avery has 44 pitches.
Joe, let me just mention, if some of our viewers are disappointed that Brazil's playing so early in the morning, maybe they have to work, right? And they can't see Brazil?
Yeah.
I mean, they play beautiful soccer. They play to the samba beat. I mean, you would love it. Your kind of soccer.
All right.
That Brazil-Scotland match will be rebroadcast Wednesday night at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ESPN 2.
Okay.
The Deuce, as you like to call it.
The Deuce.
Baerga quickly behind, 0-2. He popped out his first time.
Well, Baerga's been swinging the bat better from the right side, but he's a much better hitter from the left side. You're going to look at, it looks like a little screwball, change up, he turns it over. He's out in front.
And that is definitely a changeup, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Baerga. 1 out, nobody on. Avery has shown a real economy of pitch usage thus far in this game. Changeup. 2-2. Tatum is on deck. Did you ever meet Pele?
No.
You never met him?
Never met him. Watched him play a few times.
Edson Arantes do Nascimento, the greatest player the world has ever known. Changeup, and he walked him. Baerga gets the walk after falling behind in the count, 0-2. I saw him watching some of the French Open this weekend. He was at Roland
Garros. I saw him today. He was there when they were at the trophy presentation.
He's a great player and a great man. You see the pitching Avery, just 2 hits allowed. That was the first walk that he had given up. Yoshi given up 4 runs and 5 hits, all coming in the 3rd inning. All of the hits and all of the runs. Ball 1. All of a sudden you can't get the ball down.
Yeah, everything is up. And you're not going to get hitters to chase pitches that high out of the strike zone.
Here's Joe Kerrigan, the Red Sox pitching coach, out to speak to Steve Avery, who actually was in the minor leagues at the beginning of this year. This is only his 4th major league start of this season. He also had worked out of the bullpen 10 times. He has won 2 out of his 3 starts, although they scored him a lot of runs in those games. And his overall ERA in the big leagues coming into this game, 6.41. Trying to put his career back together. Before today, in 19 2/3 innings, he had issued 13 walks. I'm wondering, Joe, if that one goes foul by Tatum, if as badly as he was knocked around last year, spending time in the minors this year, he was so ineffective that they sent him out. And sometimes that confidence might be here for a while and then it wanes. In the right field toward the foul pole, but caught by Bragg. That foul pole is only 302 feet from home plate, but the fence does not head out toward center field from there. The fence heads out toward downtown from there. So if you don't hit it, I mean, if you hit it 5 or 10 feet off the foul pole, you've really got to crush it to get it out of here.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of balls wrap around that foul pole, though, because it's such a short foul pole. You get out in front of the left-handed hitter, and it'll hook around. Even a right-handed hitter just slices it. It will stay fair and go out of the ballpark before it finishes slicing.
Here's Alberto Castillo. Darren Lewis hit one against Baltimore Thursday night. Just the way you're talking about it. Just kind of wrapped itself around that pole. What the outstanding Boston broadcaster Ken Coleman used to call Pesky's pole. Johnny Pesky, who played here, was an outstanding Red Sox player with Ted Williams. Didn't have much power. And the few homers he'd hit about 302 feet right to that foul pole. That's the way they told it to me.
Saw Johnny before the ball game today. He was hanging around.
Johnny Pesky, the ageless one.
Yeah.
From Portland, Oregon. 1 ball, 1 strike to Castillo. 2 down. Baerga at first. 4-0. The Red Sox are leading in the 5th. Especially without Piazza, this Mets club is not particularly well equipped to come from behind. Although they've been hitting extremely well the last couple of weeks since acquiring Piazza. And a curveball. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Popped up, shallow center. Benjamin calling off Garcia-Parra, and that is the inning. So 1 man left. Avery got himself back together after the walk. Jefferson, Garcia-Parra, and Mo Vaughn, the power coming up. Now the Red Sox, last of the 5th inning, Reggie Jefferson against Masato Yoshii. And the pitch is too high for ball 1. Jefferson has walked, and then he got the big clutch hit with 2 down in the 3rd with Lewis at second to drive in Boston's first run. That was the beginning of that 4-run rally that has them leading now 4-0 in the 5th. 1 ball, 1 strike. I saw the other day where Boston general manager Dan Duquette responding to what would he do if Mo Vaughn became a free agent at the end of the year. That's a base hit. He said Reggie Jefferson would move to first base next year and they go out and try and sign a DH. Now Garcia-Parra comes up.
Number 5, the shortstop.
Let's take a look at Garcia-Parra here using backtrack. Now remember, a guy will react better inside and quicker, and that's what he does right there. But look, that's a real nice swing pattern there, and he lines the ball down the left field line for a double. That's 85 miles an hour. You got him hitting a fly ball earlier in the ball game, 82 miles an hour. And remember, it was 2 strikes on him, so sometimes you're not quite as quick with 2 strikes as you would be, say, you're ahead in the count, 2 balls and no strikes.
Now we have some kind of a problem. The ballpark security summoned by the umpires. Jim McKean and first base umpire Jim Joyce. They look to be pointing somebody out in the stands there for ballpark security, perhaps to go after. Give us an opportunity to tell you about our Wednesday night baseball doubleheader. These Boston Red Sox at Turner Field against the Atlanta Braves. A lot of power at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific in that one. Then the Oakland Athletics take on the Los Angeles Dodgers at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. The Athletics and the Dodgers, who played in the series back in '88 and also in '74. Ben Grieve and the A's. Gary Sheffield and the Dodgers, the second half of our doubleheader on Wednesday night baseball. Braves and Sox, by the way, Joe, Pedro Martinez versus Denny Nagel's schedule in the first half of the doubleheader.
That could be nice.
Garcia Parra. Wow. I don't know that our radar gun got that speed right. Unless he's throwing a 98-mile-an-hour changeup. Jefferson at first, nobody out. Garcia Parra is flying to center and doubled to left. In the dirt for a ball.
Good job there by Castillo. He's staying down on all those pitches. It's interesting that catchers try to block pitches in different ways. Castillo just stays down completely.
Well, the Mets don't make too many mistakes. They do a lot of little things well. The little ball game. Played extremely well by the Mets. And that's a foul as we get a look from Matt's can, being worn by Alberto Castillo. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Mo Vaughn is on deck. 4-0. The Red Sox are leading. Big Mo waiting his turn. Yoshi with Jefferson at first. Double play ball to short. There's one. Baerga to first. 2. Double play. Ordonez to Baerga to Olerud.
That was a smooth 6-4 to 3. Nothing special, but just a smooth major league double play. Now watch Ordonez. He throws the ball from where he catches it. He doesn't raise up and take more time, but he does so that Baerga doesn't have to hurry. See, he throws it from down there. Baerga catches it, takes his time. Just a nice, smooth double play. You make thousands of those in spring training so that when they come up like that, it's easy.
The Mets have turned 12 more ground ball double plays than they've hit into this year. Mo Vaughn takes the ball.
Well, they're back in their normal shift for Mo. Ordonez is on the right side of second base now with a runner in scoring position. He was almost directly behind the bag, a little left of the bag actually, but now they're in a situation where they just try to cover the entire right side. This should be a changeup. No, it wasn't. A fastball. Mo and I were looking for a changeup there.
2-0 to Mo.
I know Mo was looking for one.
I was looking for one.
Yeah. Threw him a fastball off the plate inside.
Well, I'm looking for the splitter now.
Well,
2-0.
He definitely will not give in to Mo and throw a fastball in the middle. He may try to sink that Shuto pitch on the outside corner. Oh, you're right. That's a splitter.
Not a good one, though. 3-0.
I don't think he really cares.
I was looking for the good one. Joe.
Yeah, but I don't think he cares to throw a good one to Mo Vaughn. I mean, there are some guys in the league. Mark McGwire's hitting in this situation. What do you care? Yeah. I mean, you know, there are certain guys that you just say, hey, you know, but Mo could be swinging right here now, so he has to be careful.
He is swinging toward the wall. This one is way back there. This one, he is gone onto the net. Number 18 for Mo Vaughn. 5-0 Red Sox.
I can't believe that you take the count, you pitch a guy as tough as he did to Mo then, and you get 3-0, and you throw him a fastball down and out over the plate.
He didn't take our warning seriously. Mo Vaughn on Sunday Night Baseball is a destructive force. That's his 10th Sunday Night Baseball home run in 53 at-bats. 19
RBIs. Now watch, here's a fastball, 2-0. I mean, look at that, right out over the plate where Mo likes it. And look at this. I mean, I knew he was hitting. I guess they should have known he was hitting. The concentration from Big Mo. And as soon as he hits it, he knows where it's going to end up.
Strike one to Troy O'Leary. Mo Vaughn, number 18 and his 44th run batted in. 5-0 Boston. Vaughn is 4th in the league in home runs now. Left center, Gilkey. Look out, he overran it. O'Leary trying for second. He is out at second, tagged out by Baerga, and the inning is over. This time, unlike Lewis in the third, you had the Red Sox runner with 2 down trying for second base. Boston gets the one, courtesy of Big Mo. 5-0 Red Sox. Red Sox leading now 5-0 over the Mets as we move to the Mets half of the 6th inning at Fenway Park. Ray Ordonez, the 9th place hitter, will start off against Steve Avery, and then leadoff man Brian McRae will follow. Edgardo Alfonso due up 3rd in the inning. Ordonez hit one right back to Avery his first time. 5 runs, 8 hits for Boston. No runs, 2 hits for the Mets. And there's ball 1. Avery limiting them to just a triple by McRae in the 4th and an infield single by Alfonso. Both hits, by the way, which could have been outs.
Right.
That is a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike to Ordonez. Changeup. 1 ball and 2 strike. Now, yesterday the Mets won a game here in which they got only 2 hits the whole game. So in their last 14 innings against Red Sox pitching here at Fenway, they've scored 1 run on 4 hits. The shortstop, Garcia Parra. And Ordonez, he is out number 1. Well, after he walked Baerga in the 5th inning, I'm talking about Steve Avery, Joe Kerrigan went out. Kerrigan is wearing a microphone. Let's listen in.
Well, all right, we just temporarily lost it again. The first hitter, you were really good. You were down where you belong. You carried that right from your warm-ups. Get your butt down there in that slot where you belong, okay? No panic guy here. He likes to swing early, make a quality pitch, all right?
This is Brian McRae, first ball swinging. Garcia Parra again. 2 men gone. He was talking about the pitch he made to Husky to get him to pop out in the 5th inning, Joe.
Well, he gets this pitch down. Well, it wasn't really down, but it was away. And that's the pitch he's talking about with Baerga. It was up. That one was really up. He threw Baerga like 3 pitches in that at-bat that were up and out of the strike zone after getting him 0-2.
So really it was sort of an advice about his mechanics.
Right.
Getting his, what did he say?
Well,
his butt down where it belongs. And that 2 down Alfonso. 0-1 the count.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Yeah. I can understand that kind of talk.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's have some bullpen activity going again. Alfonso takes a ball. 1 ball, 1 strike. John Hudek, former Houston Astro, now in the Mets bullpen, warming up. Because Bobby Valentine doesn't have to worry about where his pitcher's coming up, when he might be due, pinch hitters for him, that sort of thing, because the pitcher's not batting. It's the DH. In the American League ballparks, they play the American League rules. The National League teams have to come up with a designated hitter. That leaves the Mets with only 4 men on the bench tonight. They're going with 12 pitchers. Toward the middle, Benjamin. In the dirt, and Vaughn scoops it out to retire Alfonso.
Mo's doing his thing.
Mo is doing it all here. 5-0 Red Sox. John Valentin due up. We'll be right back. Red Sox 5, Mets nothing. We go to the last of the 6th inning from Fenway Park. Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Join host Bob Lee for a special Outside the Lines on the United States World Cup soccer team. We go behind the scenes for the 9-month journey from tryouts to qualifying games, right up to the arrival in France for the 1998 World Cup. That's Outside the Lines, the story of the U.S. World Cup soccer team, Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. And we're all pulling for USA in the World Cup this year. John Hudek takes over the mound for Masato Yoshii, who went 5 innings through 85 pitches, and Bobby Valentine apparently decided, hey, that's enough. And plus, his bullpen could use little work. Hadn't been much call for them here this weekend. Ball 1. Valentin has popped to short and blooped to double to right, driving in a run. Backing out of play.
I don't think Valentin was likely to call that hit. He had a bloop.
What it was, Joe?
Well, I guess you would call the ball I hit in the 75 series a bloop.
Oh, are you kidding? That was
that
was the bloopingest bloop I've ever seen.
Well, especially if you're a Red Sox fan.
The Red Sox fans, the blankingest bloop in history.
Well, both Valentin and I take offense to that.
The one you hit Wells, Dwight Evans.
Hits.
Well, here it is, Joe. You decide for yourself. Was this a blast or a bloop?
Drive. Look at that line drive right in front of Freddie Lynn. Look at that. Right in front of one hop. Right in front of him.
Man, that must have had a parachute on it.
Well, you're right. I guess See, if you hit it hard, Dwight Evans would catch it.
That's right.
If I hit it hard, Freddie Lynn would have caught it.
Great strategy on your part.
Yeah.
To intentionally bloop one in front of Fred Lynn to drive in the winning run of the 75 World Series right here at Fenway Park.
Number 10, the catcher.
These guys in the truck are pretty good, huh? They must have knew what I was thinking, huh?
Man, you just brought that up, and voila.
Yeah.
So I'm into the World Cup thing now.
Oh, okay. Voila.
There it is. One down. Here's Hatterberg. I mean, it was a good strategy because you clobbered one.
Yeah.
I think in Game 6.
Game 6.
And what'd you get for it? Nothing.
Nothing. Embarrassment because I hit into a double play.
Man, talk about being a clutch hitter in the biggest game. You hit into a double play.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it probably would have been about 15 rows back into the seats at any other ballpark.
Yeah, this park's a little big for me, too. That's 380 out that way. See, I'm used to those 375s.
And straight away right, 380. That's a little beat.
For little guys.
And for little guys, you only hit 26, 27 home runs a year at that time. One ball and 2 strikes that count to Hatterberg.
Get lucky every once in a while. There's Jim Rice sitting there. And Larry, Jim Rice. Pretty good hitters.
Jim Rice is the hitting coach now for the Red Sox. They're great hitters.
I think he's an underrated hitter because here's a guy that hit 320, 330, 200 hits, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. I mean, he was special.
When the MVP in '78. Strike 3 called. Hudek throwing some gas and hitting his spots right now. 2 men gone in the 6th inning. Excuse me, Joe, just one.
Go ahead.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game, such as they are, may not be disseminated without express written consent. Bonjour.
Okay.
Merci. Here is Mike Benjamin. 2 down, nobody out. Well, Masato Yoshii, who came into the game 5th in the National League in earned run average, so that ERA go up tonight. Well, Gilkey got this one, and Benjamin is gone. Hudek retires the side in order. Gilkey, Olerud, and Husky coming up with the Mets. 5-0 Boston. Sunday Night Baseball, and we head into the late innings. Inning number 7. The Mets coming up with some of their biggest hitters. Bernard Gilkey against Steve Avery, bluffing the bunt and taking ball 1, a curveball too low. Gilkey has struck out and flied out to right. Avery has dazzled him tonight with the soft stuff. That was only his 58th pitch thrown. Wow, look at that. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, Gilkey struggled a little bit here, too. He was up around 290, and he's 0 for 6 right now. He went 0 for 4 in yesterday's ball game as well.
They've got a lot of offers. They've only had 4 hits in the last 15 innings against Red Sox pitching.
Guess that will add up to some offers.
Yeah. Scored 1 run with 4 hits in the last 15 innings. The changeup. Well, he fooled him once and he fooled him again. 2-2. Well, the Mets have been a real aggressive team at the plate tonight, and that may play right into the hands of Avery. The changeup got him looking. Man, threw 2 changeups around his ankles, and with 2 strikes, wouldn't you know it, he threw one for a strike. Not many hits to be had for the Mets tonight. Only McRae and Alfonso, and both of their balls could have been played for outs. Only 1 runner has made it past second base. That was McRae, who tripled leading off the 4th, but they could not get him home. Olerud, the National League's leading hitter, struck out into a double play to end that 4th inning. Possibility.
That was a big inning for the Mets. I mean, a key inning when they could not get McRae home after a triple in the 4th.
Vaughn off his glove. And Olerud is safe.
Well, that's a situation where the second baseman should have called him off because he was going to have to backhand that ball. Second baseman was going to be right in front of it. Would have been an easy play for the second baseman. Now that's going to have to be an error. Now watch, see, the second baseman was standing there waiting. See, he should have been calling Mo off. The second baseman was supposed to say, I've got it, and let it go. And then he's got a clear, easy throw to the pitcher covering. Yeah, that would have to be an error.
So there's got to be some communication between the 2 of them.
Well, it doesn't do you any good as a second baseman to get behind him if you're not going to call him off, if you get in good position like that.
Should Mo have known where Benjamin was from the get-go?
Yeah, he knew where he was, but your first reaction is to go after the ball.
Go get it.
Yeah, and the second baseman just says, I got it. You know he's in good position to take it.
Butch Husky, the hitter. Husky has grounded a short, popped out to second. Husky wears the Jackie Robinson, number 42. That's a foul out of play. We mentioned that he wears it, as does Mo Vaughn. But Peter Pasquarelli says that Lenny Webster of the Baltimore Orioles also wears it. And apparently mistakenly said that Vaughn and Husky were the last two to wear it. Remember, that was unilaterally retired last year in honor of Jackie Robinson. Into the hole, off the glove of Garcia Parra.
Well, he did not get down quick enough. He got there, but he wasn't down quick enough to make that play. He got to the ball, but he just didn't get his glove down quick enough.
So Mookie Wilson over there, the first base coach, talking with Husky.
Watch this ground ball. You'll get a chance to see. He gets there. See, he is there, but he doesn't get it down quick enough. See, and the ball skids under his glove. He was trying to get himself, I think, in a position to throw to second base for the start of a double play.
So what do you think, E6?
Well, they're getting him a base hit. The scoring, well, they're booing something here. I don't know if they're booing it as a hit or what.
Baerga, the hitter, 2 on. And Avery throws him a strike. And the Red Sox defense has not been of much help here to Avery in the 7th inning. In fact, in the 4th inning, when they got their 2 hits, both of those balls should have been played, or could have been played. That's a ball, 1 ball and 1 strike. I still haven't seen anything. Now I see the hit go up on the scoreboard. But just now, flash it on the left field board on the wall.
That one, you just about have to score it as a base hit. That was a little more difficult play. He had to move to his right, and the ball was hit sharply.
Baerga has popped to second and walked. Fly ball right center. Bragg and Lewis. Bragg. Lewis will go back. 2 men down in the Mets 7th inning. Avery has been able to handle Baerga, who has been a hot hitter. Although Baerga, as you mentioned earlier, Joe, has been a much stronger hitter as a lefty, hitting .324 left-handed and only .220 right-handed. 0 for 2 tonight with a walk. Now Jim Tatum will come up. Jim Tatum, a former teammate in Japan of the Mets starter tonight, Masato Yoshida. They played together with the Yakult Swallows, or they say it in Japan, Yakuruto. They won a title there last year, the 3rd in the last 5 years for the Swallows. Started the year playing for Las Vegas, a Padres farm club. Ball 1 too high. And he went over there and he hit well, as you saw. The 13 home runs in only 51 games for the Swallows. Here comes Jimmy Williams out to the mound. So maybe we've seen the last of Steve Avery.
Well, he has only thrown 81 pitches.
Rich Garces, a right-hander, up in the bullpen. How many has he thrown?
81.
But he's thrown 24 of them in this inning. Well, I'm going to stick with him. Next Sunday, we hope you'll join us. Sunday Night Baseball travels to the Sky Dome. The Orioles and Cal Ripken. The Blue Jays and Jose Canseco. Their ball clubs right now chasing the Boston Red Sox for the wild card. They're both way behind the Yankees, but much closer to that wild card position. We'll check in with the Orioles, the team that led from wire to wire last year, and get a look for ourselves. Just what's wrong. The Angels, who are certainly in a battle with Texas in their own division, in Toronto. It'll be the current wild card standings. The Yankees have been so overpowering so far. Toronto is 18 behind in the loss column, and Boston is 20 behind.
It's amazing how well they have played.
One of the great records of all time after 57 games.
And remember, they got off to a slow start. They started on the West Coast and didn't play that well.
Olerud at second. Husky at first with 2 down. It's a 3-1 count to Jim Tatum. Back out of play. 3-2 now. Looks like Avery's might have lost a couple of miles on that fastball. There's the view from the rooftop here at Fenway Park.
Well, he needs to make one more good pitch and get out of this inning, and then I'm sure they will hand it over to the bullpen to try to save it for him. But he has to make a good pitch here. One bad pitch and then Mets right back in this ball game.
Got a 3-hit shutout going till now, and the changeup ends the inning. And that has been a big one for him all night long. So the Mets lead 2. 7th inning stretch time at Fenway Park. 5-0. The Red Sox lead the Mets. We'll be back.
Griffey facing Nomo. Vaughn challenging Rodriguez. Roland and Garciaparra in the same game. New matchups, new rivalries. June 5th through July 2nd, interleague play. Catch it while it lasts. It's the season inside the season. Don't miss a minute. Player stats, exclusive chats. The only way to get closer to the game is to be in the dugout. MajorLeagueBaseball.com. What a sight to see.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball from Fenway Park. As if some other ballpark would have a 37-foot high green wall in left field. The new pitchers come on. And don't forget now, stay tuned right after the ball game for Sports Center. The Jazz and the Bulls just finished Game 3. Well, there was, you could call it a game, really. The Bulls just finished off the Jazz in Game 3. And then another day of interleague play in baseball and a conversation with Michael Jordan on SportsCenter right after the game. Here is Dennis Cook on the pitch now for the New York Mets, facing Darren Bragg and then Darren Lewis and then Reggie Jefferson. 2 Darrens and a Reggie coming up against Dennis Cook. 2-0 the count. Cook was a world champion last year. He was on the Florida Marlins. And like most of his teammates from that World Series year, he's pitching somewhere else now. Al Leiter, his teammate, also with the Mets, and he's been the ace of this staff. It's been great.
But Cook fits really well last year in certain situations for the Marlins, and a lot of people really wanted Dennis Cook. He did a great job last year for the Marlins.
Well, they have that tough lefty that you can count upon to throw strikes, get a left-handed hitter out, or even occasionally to turn a batting order around. Everybody wants one. So the count is 3-1 now to Darren Bragg, who has struck out and grounded out. Boston leads 5-0 in the last of the 7th. Boston got 4 of its runs in a 2-out, nobody on 3rd inning rally. That's when the rally started. Left field. Gilkey on the move. 1 away. The in-game box score for the Boston Red Sox looks this way. And they've concentrated a lot of the offense up at the top. And that's where they got all of those runs. Mo Vaughn with the game's only home run. Reggie Jefferson drove in the first run. Troy O'Leary had a big 2-run single with 2 down and that 4-run 3rd inning. Valentin drove in a run in that rally with a double. A group double. Darren Lewis takes a strike into his 0-1. Fenway Park, which opened in 1912, 86 years ago. And there's a move afoot to build a new ballpark here, Joe. They're talking a lot about it. Red Sox apparently feel that they need a bigger ballpark with more of the suites and that sort of thing. It's interesting because in Chicago, where we were last week, there's no talk at all about replacing Wrigley Field. The Cubs have the feeling that Wrigley Field is so much a part of Cubs baseball that they don't want to tinker with that. Of course, many would argue that Fenway is just as much a part of Red Sox baseball.
Well, they're talking about building a replica of Fenway in the new park, so they will keep some of the qualities of Fenway with it within the new structure.
There's the big one in left. Broken back. And Baerga throws him out. Steve Avery may be finished. We had picked up a conversation between he and Joe Kerrigan after the inning.
Gotcha. Yeah, he was 86 pitches last time. That's 83 there. Yeah, up and down. Nice going, Hattie. Great job, Abe. Great job, kid. God darn it, nice going.
And then Avery headed down the tunnel, so maybe he's all finished. Although nobody's been throwing in their bullpen here. As Reggie Jefferson comes up, he's had a walk and 2 singles, and he fouls one away.
It was an interesting comment there also, though. They said good job, Hattie, meaning Scott Hattieberg did a good job of making Avery work and working right along with him, because a lot of times the catcher does not get as much credit as he deserves for helping a pitcher get through some tough times and pitch a fine ball game, where everybody seems to think that the pitcher does it by himself, but catchers have a lot to do with their success.
3-1. Nomar Garcia-Parra on deck, and he always goes through a certain series of gyrations on deck. Toward the wall and left, but Gilkey reaching out to make sure he's not at the wall yet, and he's got it. Nomar will come up in the 8th inning. Now at the end of 7. Boston 5, the Mets nothing.
That's a hard decision to make right now, because there's a lot of unanswered questions. You know, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, you know, just the whole team intact. So, I mean, you know, that's like walking in the dark. You know, I don't want to walk in the dark. You know, I got better vision. So when I'm going to walk in a room, I'm certainly going to make sure the light's on.
Rich Garces on to pitch now with the Red Sox. The very large right-hander in relief of Steve Avery. His best start of the year, maybe his best start for the time he's been in Boston. 7 shutout innings. And you see Garces with his numbers. Well-traveled right-hander from Venezuela. Averaging a strikeout per inning this year in 26 innings. A pinch hitter will come up for Alberto Castillo. Another former Minnesota Twin. There he is, Rich Becker. Garces got his first look in the big leagues with Minnesota back in 1993. 5-0, the Red Sox are leading. He's striking the outside.
Garces has been doing a great job as their setup man to get to Flash Gordon. Gordon has saved 19 out of 20 ball games. 20, you know, save opportunities this year.
He leads the majors.
But it would not be a save situation at this point, so we'll see how they play it.
Garces will have to set him up by allowing at least 2 runs here for Gordon to get a chance to come in and get a save. Down and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Yankees won at home against Florida today. David Cone got the start, replacing David Wells. A little shoulder problem. And Cone struck out 14. And Garces has struck out everybody he's faced. 1 away now. The Buick game summary. Up till now, we're in the top half of the 8th inning. Red Sox are leading 5-0. Boston got 4 of its runs in the 3rd inning. Red Sox have had things well in hand ever since. Yoshi give up 5 runs in only 5 innings. The Red Sox, first 5 hitters in the order, have been very potent tonight. Steve Avery with his best outing as a Red Sox. Luis Lopez, another pinch hitter. Up for Ordonez, and he promptly strokes a single to center. Lopez is aboard, hitting .258. That's his 4th pinch hit of the year.
Number 56, the center fielder.
Out of the top of the order, and here is Brian McRae. Even that game today at Yankee Stadium, David Cone struck out 14 and pitched a 2-hitter against Florida. He got bit on the finger by his mother's dog earlier this week. Missed his last start. So the man they brought in to replace him was El Duque, who pitched a great game. Now Cone was well enough to go for David Wells, who had a little stiffness, and El Duque will pitch in Cone's spot on Tuesday. So no wonder they're 44-13. Orlando Hernandez, the older half-brother of the Marlins' Livan Hernandez. Now with the Yankees, made his major league debut earlier this week. McRae, 2-0 the count. McRae is 1 for 3, had a triple leading off the 4th inning, but the Mets could not get him home. Well, Garces, Joe, he looks like he's flirting with trouble here.
Well, he's throwing the ball hard, but he's releasing it too high now, and he's falling behind here, but he's throwing the ball hard.
Three and one.
Good fastball. He's up around 91 miles an hour.
That's out of play.
Well, Flash is getting up in the bullpen, John. Flash Gordon.
He's not going to wait till the 9th inning. There he is. Well, he hadn't worked for a few days.
And they've used him on occasion, you know, get 5 or 6 outs in a ball game to get a save. So
he can certainly do it. He was a starter for most of his career. Runner goes, and it is ball 4. So Bobby Valentine's been consistent running behind. He did it in the 4th, and it backfired.
I'm going to say that doesn't make it right. Just means you're consistent.
Joe Kerrigan out to the mound to talk to Garces. 5-0, Boston ahead. Sunday, Wednesday night, doubleheader. The Boston Red Sox, Pedro Martinez in Atlanta. Back in the National League, at least for a day, to face Denny Nagel and the first-place Braves from the National League East. And then the Athletics and the Dodgers. Ben Grieve, the young rookie sensation, taking on Gary Sheffield and the Los Angeles Dodgers. 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Subject to blackout in certain markets. And Ben Grieve, some thought he was the favorite for the Rookie of the Year, and his numbers are Rookie of the Year-like right now. 309. And he gets on base a lot. 2 men on. Here is Alfonso. The Mets trying to creep back into this game. With a slider for a called strike to Alfonso, who is 1 for 3. Five to nothing. Boston ahead of the 8th inning. In the dirt. Well, the Mets have been a hot team. They won 11 of their last 14 coming into this game. I told you about the Yankees, how hot they've been. How about the Cubs?
Yeah, the Cubs.
I mean, they swept the Braves. They got the 3rd and final game of that sweep last Sunday right here on Sunday Night Baseball, and they have not been beaten since. They've won 9 in a row now. Clobbered the White Sox today at Wrigley Field. Ooh. The high cheese.
That was some real high cheese. A good fastball following 2 breaking balls. And I remember Edgardo had not seen a fastball. He'd seen 2 breaking balls, and when he turned the fastball loose, he just was not ready for it.
Lopez at second, McRae at first. 1 out. Gilkey on deck. Right field, Bragg drifting back. Plenty of room out there. Tagging up at second, Lopez, and he moves over to third. Now we've got an update on the game in Anaheim with Andre Aldridge.
Thanks, John. Top of the 7th. Watch Anaheim second baseman Justin Bogman misjudge this Curtis Goodwin line drive, and he takes it right off the face. He had to leave the ball game. Rockies have had a couple. 5-3 Angels. Back to John.
Man, that's I feel bad for him, but it's certainly a freakish play. Here's Bernard Gilkey.
I've never seen that happen to a second baseman. Seen some outfielders do that.
We've seen Gilkey do something similar to that in this game. Overran a ball hit by O'Leary back in the 5th inning. Runners at first and third. Gilkey 0 for 3. 2 down. This is the big spot now. The Mets need that big hit. to try and start their comeback. They've got the National League's leading hitter, John Olerud, on deck. Boston ahead 5-0. Off the right field line. That one will land back in amongst the spectators out there. Benjamin giving chase to second baseman. 2-1 the count.
John, I might add that sometimes when you're playing the infield, hitters hit a ball, they hit a line drive, and it's like a knuckleball. There's no spin on it, and it reacts like a knuckleball. It might just jump one way or the other depending on which way the seam rolls. It's really comes at you like a knuckleball. And I'm sure that's what happened on that ball. It was a knuckleball and moved at the last second on him.
2-1. Right to third. And Valentin over to Benjamin at second, forcing McRae. The Mets lead 2 more on. Power coming up for Boston. Nomar Garcia-Parra. And then Mr. Sunday Night Baseball, Mo Vaughn. 5-0 Boston. 5-0 Boston. Nomar Garcia-Parra, who goes through sort of a ritual before every at bat. Look at this. The left was the first inning, the right the 5th inning. Let's see how similar it is. It's looking pretty similar so far, I thought, Joe.
Yeah. Synchronized batting.
And now batting for the Red Sox, number 5, the shortstop, Nomar Garcia-Parra.
Well, he only gets to like a 3 because he lost his rhythm there toward the end.
And he gets up to the plate, and he's not finished going through all of the maneuvers. He's 1 for 3 in the game. Mel Rojas, the new Mets pitcher, throws him a called strike. Now, to me, one day I'm hoping he's on that Sunday night conversation and they really delve into where all that came from. Rojas, and it's a foul. 0-2 the count. The new catcher has come on. That is Jim Tatum, who was the designated hitter, meaning that Rojas enters the lineup. Luis Lopez stays in to play shortstop. He hit for Ordonez. And Rich Becker stays in to play left field. He hit for the catcher Castillo. So Gilkey is out. Rojas will hit in his spot, the number 3 spot.
So you really have a regular National League lineup now.
Yeah.
Without the designated hitter.
And sort of a National League double switch.
Yeah.
He's got to make maneuvers like that. He's only got a 4-man bench in the first place, and down on strikes is Garcia-Parra. Plus, Mike Piazza, one of his catchers, is not available. 1 down, and now Mo Vaughn.
Take a look at Mo Vaughn in his last at bat when he hit the home run on a 3-0 pitch. Take a look at his swing pattern. That's a pretty big uppercut, but Mo gets away with it. 91 miles an hour on a 3-0 pitch. That's about as fast as you're going to swing. Because when you get a 3-0 pitch, you're going to be able to let it all go. Everything is in sync rather than hitting like sometimes when you have 2 strikes, you're waiting a little longer. So that's probably it for Mo right about there. 91 miles an hour unless he gets a fastball on the inside half of the plate where he really has to turn on it.
The shift is on the infield for Mo. Oh, that's a good pitch.
Well, it's not so much even just it's a splitter, but his motion is very deceptive on that pitch. That was a very good pitch right there. I mean, rhythm and everything, his deception, everything was right there.
Mel Rojas, his year last year was a nightmare, really, from start to finish. And he worked out like crazy during the offseason down in the Dominican Republic, along with Pedro Martinez, Stan Javier, and some others, Ramon Martinez, with a trainer. And Mel Rojas, he said, worked as hard, if not harder than anybody. 1-2 to Mo Vaughn. Olerud. And Mo is retired. 2 men down in the 8th inning.
When you have an uppercut like Vaughn, you really have to have great hand-eye coordination, which he obviously has to be able to do what he does. Garcia-Parra, we saw him hit the home run. To watch his swing, a lot more on the plane of the pitch, more level than Vaughn's. And see all this area here where he has time to hit the ball, and it's a base hit.
Troy O'Leary up now. I like when you showed Mo with that big uppercut.
Yeah.
Because he looked such a heroic figure, such a heroic pose, like a Greek statue from the ancient times. O'Leary is gone. So are the Red Sox. Now the 9th inning coming up. Olerud to lead it off. 5-0 Red Sox. 9th inning from Fenway. John Olerud leads off against Rich Garces, and the fastball is in there. 0-1. Olerud has rounded to first, struck out into a double play, and reached on a Mo Vaughn error. Nonetheless, hitting .364 for the season. Back to the screen. 0-2 the count. Steve Avery went 7. And the Red Sox only gotten 2 wins from their 4th and 5th starters all year, and those were by Avery. But to get 7 shutout innings from their 5th starter, that's the best they've got, not just from him, but from anybody pitching down there. Their first 3 men have done pretty well, especially Pedro Martinez and Tim Wakefield. Although, ironically, they lost in the first 2 games of this series. Here's Wakefield, pitched yesterday.
He pitched well, but Martinez, they knocked him around.
And that's a ball 2-2. And Pedro gave up 4 homers in the first 4 innings. Most home runs he'd ever given up in a game. Plus, he also hit Mike Piazza in the first inning of that game. And Piazza was not very happy about it. And there's been a little battle in the newspapers here, both in Boston and New York. There's verbal assaults, one toward the other, the last 2 days. And that's an out. Olerud is 0 for 4. Here's Piazza, and we'll see more of the same in the papers tomorrow, because Piazza took off after Pedro Martinez tonight here at Fenway Park, after Pedro was quoted in the papers this morning going off on Piazza. That's a look from both inside the scoreboard in left and then from the scoreboard looking out. It's the place where they got that, where Harry Coyle, the immortal baseball director, got the shot that will live forever of Carlton Fisk's Game 6 home run that Joe Morgan remembers so vividly.
Yeah, but I'm glad we're reminding them tonight the Reds won that series. Most people think that Carlton Fisk and the Red Sox won because that was a historical home run.
Well, that's because he hit a home run and you hit a bloop.
This is baseball.
A bloop was what was called for.
Thank you. My father said, don't spend a dollar when a dime will do.
So Joe paying an early tribute to his father. Strike 3 to Husky on the outside. So 2 men are gone. Husky had a couple of words for Jim McKean on that one.
Well, let's take a look at this fastball away. You see the target set up there by Hatteberg. He moves it a little bit, but fastball over the outside corner with 2 strikes.
It's pretty close to 2 strikes. 2 down now, and here is Baerga. He's 0 for 2 with a walk. Swinging from his strongest side now, the left side. Hitting .324 as a lefty. Pops it up. This should do it. Valentin in foul territory, and the ball game is over. So the Red Sox salvage 1 out of the 3, beating the Mets here on a shutout, 5-0. 2 shutouts in the 3-game series. And Steve Avery giving the Red Sox a little taste of the Avery of the Atlanta days when he was one of the best in the league.
Well, I think that's important for Steve Avery as well as the Red Sox. Avery's a guy that I've always admired because there was times people thought he had the best stuff on the Atlanta staff. He and John Smoltz, and he had arm problems. He's been battling back, and it has to help his confidence tonight. I'll be interested to see what he does his next time out.
And a different kind of Avery now, not the hard thrower the way he used to be, but certainly tonight he was every bit the pitcher. So the Red Sox get a win. Now they themselves are heading for Atlanta. Next Sunday, we'll be heading for the Skydome of Toronto. Cal Ripken, Rafael Palmeiro, Eric Davis, Joe Carter, and the Orioles to take on Jose Canseco and the Blue Jays at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And we hope that you will join us there. The Red Sox win it 5-0 over the Mets. John Miller for Joe Morgan. Good night from Fenway Park. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.